2016 census, there are over 1.2 million Black Canadians. Although there are Black communities across Canada, the city with the highest Black population is Toronto. The first recorded person of African descent to arrive in Canada was a man named Mathieu de Costa, a free man who arrived in 1608. He served as the interpreter during the expedition of the French colonist Samuel Champlain, who established the French colonies of Quebec and New France. Mathieu helped the colonists to communicate with the First Nation people of Canada. In 1689, King Louis XIV authorized slavery in New France, leading to the first Black population arriving in significant numbers, which continued throughout the 17th and 18th centuries.
One significant 18th century account of a Black Canadian was Marie-Joséphine Angélique, an enslaved woman in New France who was convicted of setting fire to her master's house.
She confessed under torture, though the veracity of her confession is questionable, and she was executed in 1734. In 1776, during the American Revolution, the British government promised land rights to Black people, both enslaved and free, who fought on their behalf.
This prompted large numbers of Black people to migrate to Nova Scotia, which eventually led to race riots, sparked by disgruntled white residents. However, many of the Black population left again in 1792 and relocated to Sierra Leone, disillusioned by the discrimination they faced in Nova Scotia. In 1793, two major pieces of legislation were passed that caused a large influx of Afro-descendant people to Canada.
The first was the Fugitive Slave Law in the US, which authorized local governments to seize and return escaped slaves to their owners. This resulted in over 30,000 enslaved Africans migrating to Canada via the Underground Railroad. The second piece of legislation was the Anti-Slave Bill passed by Lieutenant John Graves Simcoe, which didn't abolish slavery but sought to gradually phase it out. Following the American Revolution, the British government allowed the settlement of over 3,000 Black people who had remained loyal to Britain, known as the Black Loyalists.
There have been numerous waves of Black migration over the 19th and 20th centuries. Many Black people worked as porters with the railroad companies, as miners and farmers.
Marimba in El Salvadoran folk music is also of African heritage. Afro-Salvadorans are still not recognized by the Constitution. However, the organization Afrodescendientes Organizados Salvadoreños works to make visible the Afro-Salvadoran community and protect their rights by law. The People's Day of Salvadoran Afro-descendants is celebrated on August 29th each year.
And today we're going to be talking about the African diaspora in Honduras, more specifically the Garifuna people. Let me start by saying that in today's video we'll be talking about a distinct ethnic group called the Garifuna. There are Garifuna populations all over Central and North America, but for the purposes of this video we'll be focusing in particular on the Garifuna community in Honduras. So let's get started.
The Garifuna community are an ethnic group dispersed across Central America, the United States and Canada. Their total population currently stands at 300,000. The biggest settlement resides in the United States, where to a certain degree they are absorbed under the vast and infinitely diverse umbrella term African American. The second largest Garifuna population can be found in Honduras, with small but significant concentrations in Guatemala, Nicaragua and Belize. Honduras has a population of 9.3 million, of which 100,000 people are Garifuna. The Garifuna across the diaspora speak the local languages of the countries in which they live. In Guatemala, Nicaragua and Honduras, they speak Spanish, and they speak English in Belize, the United States and Canada.
The correct plural term for the Garifuna people is Garinagu. The word Garifuna refers to a single person, the language and the culture. However, in spite of this, the Garinagu are widely referred to as the Garifuna.
Within Honduras, only two Afro-Honduran communities are regarded as being distinct ethnic groups. Those are the Garifuna and the Bay Island Creoles. The Bay Island Creole communities speak English and remain separate from their Spanish-speaking compatriots of the Honduran mainland. The Garifuna are the largest ethnic minority in the country. There are 36 Garifuna communities in Honduras and 10 settlements.
Afro-Guatemalans make up 1 to 2% of the population. The majority of Afro-Guatemalans are either descended from English-speaking Afro-Antillians or they are part of the Garifuna ethnic group that extends across Central and North America. The Spanish brought enslaved Africans to Guatemala from the 1500s onwards during Spanish colonial rule, and over time they formed an Afro-Mestizo ethnic group. The Garifuna are a mixed heritage population historically descended from Arawaks, Caribs and Africans. They originated on the island of St. Vincent but were forcibly deported by the British and thousands settled in Guatemala. Today there is a sizable Garifuna community in the Guatemalan town of Livingston.
Hi everyone, my name's Faida and welcome to Freedom is Mine, where we talk about Black history, culture and contribution from all around the world. And today I'm delighted to announce our brand new book, The Afro Encyclopedia, where we explore Black history from 100 countries around the world. The book is fully illustrated, suitable for all ages, and I guarantee you will learn something new. So check it out by clicking the link in the description below. And without further ado, let's get started.
The 2020 census conducted by the Mexican government showed that 2.5 million people self-identified as Afro-Mexican or of African descent. The region with the highest concentration of Afro-Mexicans is Costa Chica, which includes the southern states of Oaxaca and Guerrero. The second largest black population is in the state of Veracruz. Guajinicuilapa is a historically black town in Guerrero and is also home to Mexico's first museum dedicated to Afro-Mexican history and culture. Afro-Mexicans speak Spanish and most are of the Catholic faith. In the early years of the Spanish colonial period, from 1580 to 1650, the Spanish trafficked an estimated 250,000 Africans to Mexico from Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, Congo, Angola, and Mozambique. In the early 1600s, Mexico had the largest enslaved African population in the Americas. This resulted in interracial unions between the African, Spanish, and indigenous populations.
Enslaved Africans worked largely in agriculture, silver mines, and on sugar plantations. This valuable contribution played a key role in Mexico's economic growth.
Enslaved Africans who escaped captivity formed communities across Mexico known as palenques, the Spanish word for settlements of escaped enslaved people. The Afro-Panamanian population can be divided into 2 main groups, known as the Afro-Colonials and the Afro-Antillians. The Afro-Colonials are descended from enslaved Africans trafficked to Panama by the Spanish from the early 1500s to 1821. Spain used the Isthmus of Panama as a major commercial center. Distinct major influxes of people of African descent to Costa Rica. The earliest influx was that of enslaved Africans who were brought to Costa Rica under Spanish colonial rule. The second major influx happened in the 19th century when Caribbean laborers, predominantly from Panama and Jamaica, migrated to Costa Rica. They worked in fishing, agriculture, construction, and on banana plantations. Jamaican workers in particular migrated in large numbers and settled in the port city of Limon. For a long time, the Jamaican diaspora spoke English instead of Spanish and held on to their own customs. In Costa Rica, the month of August, and most importantly August 31st, is celebrated as Black People's and Afro-Costa Rican Culture Day. Among Afro-Nicaraguans, there are several distinct ethnic groups. These are the Creoles, also called Afro-Antillians, the Mestizo Sambus, the Garifunas, and the Afro-Mestizos, descendants of enslaved Africans brought by the Spanish. Enslaved Africans were brought to Nicaragua from the mid-1500s onwards to work on sugar plantations or indigo mills. In particular, they were located around the city of Bluefields, which to this day is mostly inhabited by people of African descent. Many Afro-Antillians migrated to Nicaragua in the 19th and 20th centuries to work on banana plantations owned by the American United Fruit Company. The Palo de Mayo festival, Maypole in English, is celebrated in the month of May every year and originated among Afro-Nicaraguan communities in Bluefields in the 17th century. Famous Afro-Nicaraguans include June Beer, an artist, poet, and activist, and Charlotte Aline Moses, a model who was the first person of African descent to win the title of Miss Nicaragua.